Hi guys, welcome back to Gryphon Studio. So I'm going to get back on the dungeon terrain theme today, and I have made a jail cell. Pretty sweet. The cage doors are removable, so they can just be used as little cubby places, cubby holes things. Normally I wouldn't put walls on my dungeon terrain, but it's a jail. It's going to have walls. So, yeah, I could have put doors. I could put jail doors in, but I think it would have just took over too much of the front facade. So I thought I'll just leave the doors off, keep it simple, but they are removable, so it's all good. So yes, that's what I've been making. Let's get to it. Alright, so first things first, we're going to need a dungeon tile floor to match the rest of my dungeon tile floors, and then some walls. All prisons are going to have walls, so the walls are going to be 2 inches high, and these smaller sections here, they're going to be 2 inches high too. And the idea is that the back wall will fit onto the dungeon tile. The dungeon tile here is 6 by 3 inches, and then these 3 small walls will fit like that, creating 2 cells. And I'm going to use my usual method of texturing walls. You could always build walls out of bricks, but I find this method to be a bit less time consuming, and it does give a pretty good overall effect and a lot of uniformity where you need it. So I'm going to take a few different brick shaped tube ends here and just kind of push them and stamp them into the form. XPS form as usual, just to match up with the rest of my dungeon tiles. And remember guys, these dungeon walls won't be particularly well built, so do some kind of odd patterns, clumsy patterns that don't really add up so well, but I mean, you can make them, you can fill in the gaps as you need to. So here we have them all done. I'm going to texture them by rolling an aluminium ball over the top. Give them a nice bit of rock stone like texture. Now I've got an idea to put this is a styrene rod. It's a hollow square section, and I'm going to sit this across the top of the 3 walls that would divide the cells. So I'm going to cut out a little notch about the thickness of this styrene rod, and the styrene rod will basically kind of be the top of the bars, the cell bars. So hopefully that'll just sit in there nice and comfortably, and then we can add the bars to the styrene rod. Now I also want to use a little bit of this needlepoint mesh, and this is really quite useful stuff. I'm just going to mark out where I need the holes to be in the styrene rod. I'm using that with sharpie, and then I'm going to drill those holes out with a rotary tool, and there, as you can see. And then the cocktail sticks, which I'm using here, I'm going to use these for the bars. I mean, you can use other, styrene rods, or you can use anything, barbecue skewers or something if it's a good enough thickness. But the needlepoint mesh allows you to really separate them uniformly to create a nice even distance between the bars. So you can just slot them in the holes and then glue them in with super glue. And once the cocktail sticks have been glued firmly to the styrene rod, you can start separating the needlepoint mesh and just kind of gently tease it into position where it needs to be, nice and straight and nice and parallel to the other one, parallel to the top bar, the styrene rod, and then hopefully you get kind of a jail cell looking thing. Obviously I'm doing 2 here, so I want to make sure they match, because otherwise it'll be very obvious if they don't. Right, while the glue on the bars is drying, I'm going to add some Mod Podge and black paint as my undercoat to the dungeon tiles and the dungeon walls. Now I wanted these iron bars to kind of sit not just into the floor but into a kind of a raised brick stonework sort of area. So I just took 2 pieces of XPS foam, one for each cell, and I just kind of carved a bit of a brick texture into it in the form of 4 bricks, and this should basically allow the cocktail sticks to sit firmly into the base, and the whole thing can then be removed if needs be, like including these bottom bricks. So I just divided them and then separated them again with a little bit of a bevelling tool, which is just an old paintbrush handle, and then textured them with an aluminium ball. Okay, so these things are way too long at the moment, so I'm going to crop some of these cocktail sticks down, and I would advise wearing goggles at this point because these things fly off like very tiny but very real javelins. So just be careful when doing this bit. Yep, sorry. And now that those are nice and short, I can push them into the XPS foam bases that I made. I'm just going to use a bit of tacky glue for this. I'm going to use my usual method for painting stone walls, so I'm going to first cover a few of these bricks in different shades of browns and ivories and tans and chocolates and mochas and all sorts of colours. The idea is that it just breaks up that grey monotony. The base is going to get a heavy dry brush of a medium grey, and then I will add a few little streaks of kind of browns and tans and things just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then once the wash goes on, they'll really pick up those colours and give you a slightly better looking floor. Now I want to add the Mod Podge black paint covering to these as well. This gives them a really good surface for other paint to adhere to. Mod Podge and black paint seems to be one of the only things that even kind of sticks to needlepoint mesh as well, and it will also protect the foam at the base, and it will kind of hopefully fill in a little bit of the wood grain on the cocktail sticks, because I don't want those to be wooden looking, I want them to be like iron bars. So hopefully that'll do the trick. And then we'll just dry brush the walls in the same way as we did the floor. Pretty heavy grey dry brush, and it really mutes down those colours, those brick patterns that you did. And then add a wash to the base and do a kind of a stippling method like this so that you don't activate the paint underneath. And do the same with the walls. I'm not going to spend too much time on this bit because I do this in pretty much all my videos, but just in case you haven't seen it, this is what I do. And I'm going to add it to the base of the bars as well, since that's also stonework. Then I'm going to take some Rhinox hide. This is a great kind of a base coat for any sort of rusty iron that you're going to paint. So I covered all the bars in Rhinox hide, and then I took some Riser Rust, which is a technical dry paint by Citadel, and I just kind of stipple it on little bits here and there, and then try and blend that in with the stippling method into the rest of the ironwork. And what you end up with is some kind of areas of much brighter orange, and some areas of a much duller orange, or closer to a brown, and you get a good kind of messy, rusty pattern. And now with all the parts painted and assembled, it's time to stick them all together. I'm using a hot glue gun, and I need 2 sides covered on that one, and 2 sides covered on that one. And now this will be more than strong enough to be played on, withstand, you know, people placing models down and manhandling the pieces. I'm going to add a bit of a baden black here to the top, just to kind of fill in that what was basically negative space. I didn't want just to look messy with kind of grey foam, so I just colored that in black. And then I added a few details to the walls, some scratch marks there where someone's tallied off their days in prison. And I wanted to add a small pool of water to the floor, so I used some UV resin. Now, whenever I've seen movies and things where there's some sort of jail cell, there's always hay or, you know, kind of dry grass or something like placed in the bottom that these unfortunate prisoners sleep on. So I thought it'd be a cool idea to add some dry grass, which basically looks like hay. And yeah, and then I kind of, you didn't see it there, but I also used some scenic cement just to cement those hay clumps in place. Here I'm cutting up a bit of cloth, which I think was an old pillowcase. I'm soaking it in scenic cement. You can just soak it in PVA and water, that'll probably work as well. And then rinsing it out a little bit. I'm going to place this in the bottom of one of the cells, and then hopefully kind of flatten it down with a paintbrush here, which I'm kind of soaking it in PVA glue as well, just so that it goes really kind of rigid and durable and really sticks down to the surface. And then finally I'm going to add some moss in the usual way that I would. I'm going to use Woodland Scenics Fine Turf Burnt Grass, I think it is, and a bit of PVA glue mixed together into a paste, and then just kind of smeared on into the brickwork. Alright guys, there we have it, all done. It's worthwhile noting that while I was making this, it could just be used as a cubby. Interesting little cubby thing. But you know, it's meant to be a prison, and as a prison, as a jail, it's super useful. Like dozens of encounters have prisons and jails in them and things. So, I mean, any dungeon, any good dungeon's got a jail cell. Where would you put the prisoners? Anyway, so yeah, I've also got Instagram set up, so if you want to check out my Instagram, feel free to do that, at iron_Gryphon_studio, and I will hopefully post a few things on there to, you know, hints and tips and things that I do in my workshop, and hopefully learn a little bit more from other hobbyists as well. That's all for this video though, so if you liked it and enjoyed what I was making here, then feel free to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will get back to you soon with another video, hopefully. That's it for now. I will see you again next time. Be crafting.